Hi, everybody. I'm Bill Sanders, and this is Watch Art Sci, the art and science of watch collection. Today, what I want to talk about is launching a new watch subscription. Let me basically explain what this is. Uh, Essentially, for watch collectors, at least like me and some other guys, is that there are a lot of really high quality watches we'd like to have, but we can't afford them. And so what we've done is we get together and we get a watch. We all kick in a certain amount, and that'll pay for the watch and the production of the watch. We don't have any marketing costs. We don't have any advertising costs. We don't have all we're paying for is essentially the manufacturer of the watch. And that is roughly based on a formula that's used by watch manufacturers. It's about 1/6 of it. And so for a $30,000 watch, we could get it for 5,000 because we don't have all of these other costs and we're not in it for the profit. So this is essentially what it is. When I was in publishing for years, and the publishing ratio was basically it was 10 times. If a book cost $1 to produce, at all of the cost to manufacture it, in the bookstore it would be $10. So, and with watches, we understand is that's from about 6 times. Some of them are more so, up to 10 times. Okay, so we tried it. Now this has been done. I've done this with Larique, and I'll talk about that a little later. And another group we formed for another reason is primarily for watches that we could get at with movements that were already done. In other words, they're off the shelf movements, but high quality movements. Uh, so essentially, you say, well, why not get the best if we can? But the way we have to go about it is very different than walking into an AD and saying, hey, I want this or I want that. Um, Now, the Fude Sablé watches are subscription watches, and they're based on creating watches around quality horology, and so that's essentially what we're doing. I put down there at the bottom in blue. There's an email address for Fernando. Fernando and I are working together on this, and you can contact Fernando, and he'll send you everything that you need to know. Or we have a Facebook page called Montreux's Fude Sablé Facebook page. So anyway, so if you're interested in this, the reason I'm stressing this, I can't tell you how many times I get these emails. Now, next time you have one of these things, be sure to let me know. So that's what I'm doing. I'm letting people know who are interested. Some of you already know about it. We already have subscribers, so uh, off we're going. By the way, too, we do have a deadline on it. It's March 4th. And so if you are interested, go ahead and get all the information and get started. Now, let's take a look at the watch movement we decided to get. This is called the Chronode C101. Chronode is by a company by one of the top watchmakers by the name of Jean-Francois Mojon. And we'll talk about that in a second. Okay, but for now, this is what we have. This is our basic watch. It's a manual wind, 21,600 semi-oscillation per hour. That's 3 hertz. 168-hour reserve. That's 7 days. That's why we're calling it 7 jours. It has a 12 o'clock reserve de marche. That's a power reserve indicator at 12 o'clock. Well, it's actually right above the uh, the center pivot, and it has two barrels in what is called in series. Now, the question of why Chronode, uh, it goes back if you're going to spend a lot of effort to get a watch from really a top name watch, and if you looked at the prices, they're 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 all going over 20, 30, 40, $50,000. It's just insane. After the pandemic, they seem to jump up just sort of out of range. So what what we did, there was a, I think I forgot where it was I saw it. There was this picture of these five top watchmakers, and they had it 2012 to 2022. Well, of the ones that I knew of course, I knew of Philippe Dufour, I knew of Jean-Marc Viderec. I had heard of Jean-Francois Mojon and Guido Papi. I hadn't heard of Carol Forestier Casapi. She was, at the time, all of the brains behind these movements that Cartier was turning out, and they were turning out some really great movements. Cartier is owned by Richemont, and Richemont was using some of the Cartier movements in some of their other brands through what was the watchmaking arm of Val Fleurier. Not It's called Val Fleurier. That's the watchmaking arm of Richemont. So, in looking at this, both Agenor and Chronode had watch movements that you could get. Agenor was we've been working with Larique. They are just fantastic, but they're very expensive. Not for the sake of being expensive, but what they put into their movements quite expensive. Also, too, uh, more recently, since the last election, the dollar has really taken a hit against the Swiss franc, and so it's even more expensive. The other hand, Chronode, their movements are also in Swiss francs, and so what we decided that if we could find a really top watchmaker like Jean-Francois Mojon and get one of those movements, let's see if we could do it. And that's what we're doing. That's exactly what we're doing right now. Okay, now the plan for success. And again, most of this is from my experience with Agenor and Larique. Um, the first thing you have to do, you've got to get the price of everything. We had some real problems with it because a watch that we started in 2023, we had a budget all set up for that, and the dollar was about 90 cents to the Swiss franc. Well, now today it's down to 77 cents. And so that sort of really did a lot of harm to our budget. So, and these kinds of things you have to, so it's very important to make these plans. And so you have to get the price of the movement, the designer, and then the designer is going to have special prices for case tooling, dial tooling, 3D CAD. That's going to be right up front, the cost you're going to have. The cost of the case, the cost of the dial, the cost of the hands, the cost of the strap, the cost of a tabasseur. A tabasseur is a person who puts a watch together, assembles the whole thing, and what the unit price is for each assembly. For example, on right now we have a very expensive one we're doing with Larique, and it's 250 Swiss francs per watch, uh, which is about $300 watch just for the putting it together. So you got to watch out for those because you can't say, well, I hope that it's not going to cost anything. So those things are very important to do. The case, the dial, the hands, the strap, so forth. And the designer needs the right specs to know how to you have to get a designer, not who's just a good designer. Our daughter's a fantastic designer. She does packaging design, but not watch design. And there's a little uh, one of those kinds of sheets that you have to be able to understand and read and use with everything to for a good designer, instead of a good designer developer. Uh, it's just important to do. You can't just know how to make pretty designs. And then finally is making and or finding the best quality for the price. Um, Pre-budgeting for any deals you can get. If you can get a good quality, sometimes you got to get that ahead of time. We got a great deal on the straps, some croc straps. So these things are, again, that's how you plan for it, but you can't just go in with say, oh, gee, I hope everything works out, because it won't. Okay, now there's pricing for the Chronode C101. C101 is the name of the movement. 7 jours or 7 days is because it's a weekly watch. You wind it up at the beginning of the week, and you don't have to do it until the next week. Okay, so the basic price we set up was $5,000. This is a $5,000 watch, and included you have the movement, and there's also an extra price for to have our logo on the bridge rather than having nothing or somebody else's brand. So that costs us. So that's included in it. We have the crocodile band with the quick release on it. This is something that we had to negotiate ahead of time. We got the watchmaking. This includes the $5,000. What's included in that? The watchmaking and what's called the italicase cost. This is what it costs to put together, and a watch pouch, a pouch to put the whole thing in. This is now, we said we're not going to get one of those beautiful big boxes that you get with some watches. You get a watch, and I've got a watch that looks like a two-story watch for one of my Vacheron Constantins. And it's a beautiful box, but that thing ends up in a closet somewhere, and it was part of the cost. So we found another one that's a little more practical, can use as a travel thing too. So now this particular one, the one we just were just starting really on another project. There was no additions one way or the other to the movement. Just sometimes that happens, and it did. This one, though, there are a couple. One, as I mentioned, was having the logo put on the bridge, one of the bridges in the back of the movement, and so that's also included. But there was another one that you could have what's called anglaise, and that's a hand finishing beveling. Essentially, someone goes in there and hand finishes it for you. Looks really nice, but it's expensive, and so it's $520. Now, the way we set this up is that we have it set up. This is using a brigade method, what's called the brigade subscription. He started off with 25%. The movement people wanted 50% of their movement up front, so we had to start at 50% of 5,000, which was 2,500. If a person wants the hand beveling, that was an extra 520. So the initial deposit would be 3,020. The reason for that is that we have to order them all together. And so we had to indicate which ones we want hand beveled, well, how many we want hand beveled and how many we don't. Those who paid for it will get it. Those who didn't won't. I may not. I can't afford even a beveling. But I like them. And then there'll be two further payments of $1,250. Now, the only other charge that we may have, and we're all on the same boat on this, when they send us the movements, There may be a tariff on that. Now, the $5,000 includes the customs cost and shipping and that part of it, but it doesn't include the tariff. We kept that separate because maybe they won't have it, maybe they will. There's been a Supreme Court decision that said, no, you can't do that. And so maybe they'll get rid of it. On the other, because if we had charged it initially and then we didn't have it, that'd be a mess. So we're just sort of keeping that one thing aside. Okay, so that's the whole pricing of the thing. Essentially, it's a $5,000 watch. The only possible other thing is going to be the tariffs, if nothing else. So now the question is, what can we create? This watch, the one that's shown there, is the Urban Jurgensen I think it's called the UJ1, and it's 368,000 Swiss francs. That's about $420,000 for a watch. But the reason that I wanted to show that it has exactly the same kind of placement of hands. It has the power reserve indicator right between the center and the 12 o'clock. You can see that there. Then it has the small seconds at 6 o'clock, and then it has what are called center minutes and center hours. Now, I don't know what our watch is going to end up looking like, and this is one of the things that the group has to do, but the group has to listen to the designer. I know this is important because a lot of times, we don't want to end up with something that looks like is done by a committee. But we do want our own input, and I don't know how many people are going to be involved. So far, quite a few have been. So it would be impossible to please everybody. That's one thing, is that if even any consideration of this, don't think, oh boy, we'll all join this and I'll get exactly what I want. The answer is no, you won't. I haven't. I never have. I coordinate the things and say, oh, gee, I'd like this, and everybody else says, no, let's get something else. Or the designer says, if we do this, this will be a problem. So it's the kind of thing. It's really, the fun part is we're all talking and so forth and trying to come up with new ideas. And I've got a lot of great ideas from guys who say, why don't we do this or why don't we do that? And other things, taking some of the experience that I've had, I say, well, this is what happened to us when we tried that. And so we sort of share everything and try to work together. So like I said, even though we're not going to get everything we want individually, what we're going to get is something that we couldn't afford otherwise. It's going to be really terrific for our watch collection and also our personal use. The kind of thing that you generally have in mind is what I'll call a gentleman's watch. It's not going to be a sports watch you're going to go swimming in and so forth. It's going to be a watch that you're going to wear to work and you can use every day and have a good-looking watch with wind it up once a week. That's all you have to do. Anyway, if you're interested, go ahead and contact either Dr. Fernando Rodriguez. This is his email down there at the bottom again, or simply go to the Facebook page, Montres Fou de Sablé. That's the Facebook page, and there's also instructions on there. But this is not something for everybody, and if it just doesn't look right or feel right, don't do it. Go down to the AD and get one. Or the usual places, eBay, Chronode 24, or from a bunch of guys you know. Anyhow, let me know what you think. And until next time, this is Bill Sanders for Watch Art Sci, the art and science of watch collection.